What's going on, everyone? So there is a lot of discussions going on with 43311 and 44111. So I watched TenTen's video. I also looked at text too. And so my thing is here is that the only thing that I can't disagree with on 10, and I think obviously everyone knows this, is obviously that 43311 is superior on every end. That's pretty obvious. Something I can't agree with is that it's a scam. Because you're literally just saying to avoid it. You know, like every single player in the world is going to win at going into a casino. Why am I saying that? Because that's what this is. And the house is going to win. Kuro Games is going to make the money. Because you don't have enough farming time. And what I mean by that is that there's a limit to how many you can take out per day. And then it's just not detected. You know what I mean? And there's some people that could sit there for like 2 straight days of farming. And I can't even say 2 straight days of actual time because you have a limit to when it runs out. So how many hours per week do you actually have to really do this to where you're guaranteed that drop? Because one thing that annoys me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you can agree on this, is that when I'm looking for a set, and let's say I wanted to get something for Yingling, I need Glacial Element. But I keep on getting elements for glacial sets like fusion, you know what I mean? Spectro, you know what I mean? Every element like arrow, and it's in glacial. This is what I call a hamster wheel mechanic to make it harder. I wish they would have not had this in the game at all, and I don't care even if you had the same limit to where it runs out, because you can join other people in co-op, but we're gonna get to that in a second. But I would have rather you lower the percentage of me getting a glacio statted piece than you throwing me all this nonsense that I'm just never going to use, and it's just getting in the way to make it harder. I don't like that. Like, that's like I said, you're just like, to me that's a scam. Like, and I feel like in the future you could make it better and just change around the math and also just diversify things in the game rather than that crap right there. But are they going to remove it? Probably not. But I don't like it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you agree with that. It's bull crap because you have to consider how hard it is to get that. And that's why they came out with that message saying that this stuff going on with echoes, the percentage drops, and why they got that event coming up is just ridiculous. You know, and if you're going to do that, then raise up the math, then we can go on the other end and, you know, let me have a chance of getting that better. Because imagine if you did get that, right, and it took you like 3 days or 2 days of running out, and it's a trash roll. What are the chances of you getting that again? And you have to get that twice on just one character. If you have a full team, you have to get that 6 times on each character. And if you got multiple teams, which you have to have on this game if you want to do everything, it's just ridiculous. So if you're a free-to-play player and then you're running out of resources, I can't agree with 44111 being a scam if it's something that you could have. You say, at least I'm doing like 80% of meta rather than sitting here with broken pieces that don't have anything on it. And if I'm good enough in the game and I have other characters that do have 43311 and I just have to do this on, like, you know, a couple characters with multiple different teams, like I said, definitely as long as the game has been out. You're not going to have 2 or 3 teams, all 43311, you know, maxed out, unless you got incredibly lucky. And that's why I say casino, because it's like, okay, this guy came in and hit jackpot. But what is the percentage of that happening? We need to speak for the entire player base, not from an elite standpoint. And I reach the top on anything I do in every game, but I know if I'm going to say something like this, I need to adjust it and realize that I need to be speaking for everyone. So it's not like nobody in the world knows that 43311 is the best. That's not what this is about. What it's about is how ridiculous it is to obtain it with the wrong elements being put in the wrong categories, as I was explaining, which is really annoying. And then when you do get them, are you guaranteed to get a god roll? So let's talk about the percentage of having all of that happen for multiple characters. No. So if you don't have that option and I still can go and I'm not getting to detect not found on another 4, I can have 2 4s and I can have the 1 1s there. And if I decide to replace them, guess what? My 4 could be God tier and my 2 1s could be God tier. All I got to do is get 2 3s with that 30% elemental damage and replace the 4 and the 1. And I can take that other 4 and the 1 and put that on another character. Or somebody else is useful for it. You see what I mean? That's not a scam. That's actually reasonable for the average player. So that's where I don't agree with him. I think he's a smart guy, but I think he made some mistakes by saying is a massive scam. Avoid this misinformation right now. It's not misinformation. He just wants to cover what looks the smartest and what seems the best, which everybody knows that already. We didn't even really need all those graphs because we know this already. Mathematically, I don't need a graph for you to tell me that. So that's why I wanted to cover this right now before I got into this, so we can take a look at this real quick. And like I said, I like TenTen. I've watched some of his content. I think he's a smart player and he's good at what he does. And like I said, I agree with a lot of things he's saying. And some of the stuff he was doing is actually smart. But I think that all the players that get meta and at least know math to a reasonable extent are gonna already know that. But for you to go around and say it's a massive scam and avoid this misinformation, it's like saying all the other people were doing that are scamming people and giving them misinformation. And I think he could have handled that better, but maybe he has a different agenda. I don't know. I'm not trying to even make this super dramatic about him, but the point is that it's not a scam. It's a reasonable thing to have, that you could replace the 4 and the 1 with the 3 threes when you get them, while having at least, like I said, if I'm doing 80 to 85%, I've cleared all content in the game. I may not have gotten 3 stars on everything if you're only doing that on all your characters. The elemental damage matters, because when you're going up into the adversity, you're even getting that 30% elemental, like that one for Gion and that one for Calcharo with the electro damage. If you got that 60% on top of that with both of the 5 pieces, because they give you also, I mean, we're talking about 100 and something elemental damage. You can't compete with that. You need it. You know what I mean? But like I said, if you cleared everything up to that point and you did the best you could, then you're getting it to make your times better. That makes more sense. But let's take a look at this real quick, see some things that he says.
I've been seeing a lot of people trying to push for the 4-4-1-1-1 build, claiming that it is easier to farm, it is easier to obtain in the early game, and you should be doing it. No, you should never be doing it. That is completely wrong. And
I see, never should be doing is like saying you only should go for 4-3-3-1-1, like you're going to be guaranteed that. Not everybody has a lot of time, like some of us do. And like I said, I disagree with that, because you can still make that useful, and you could take the 4 and the 1-1, which you're using anyways, and just replace the other 4 and a 1 with a 3-3 and put that 1 on another character and that 4 on another character as a main or something that's coming out. So no, I can't agree with that.
it has nothing to do with the fact that it's easier to obtain. It has nothing to do with the fact that the subsets are easier to roll. It is just mathematically purely wrong. And it just comes down to simple calculus. It actually comes down to a pretty simple calculus problem called optimization, which I already talked about in a different video, but here's a little more detailed breakdown on a hopefully a simpler level instead. Now here's a simple graph that kind of...
Look, my thing is that when something sucks, you know what I mean? It's like, oh man, this is like 40%. This is trash. I can't beat anything. But to say that sucks when it's almost like the lower tier after 4-3-3-1-1, yeah, that's a bit childish. He's funny with that. But like I said, he's not being dumb. He's doing what he wants to do. So I'm not saying that he's dumb because of that, but I'm just saying, come on, man. It does not suck. I've tried it all, you know what I mean? And I have to say no.
Explain the pictures. Now I want to make it very clear that this graph is not the final answers. Depending on the characters, depending on your build, your team, your graph could look different. But the general idea is always the same. Starting from the top yellow line, this is your 4-3-3-1-1 with a 5p set bonus. And as your substat get better, you can see your damage keep.
Okay, if it sucked, then it would just not be under any of these. The only thing I see being better than that is this right here, to be honest with you. So he's going to say 4-3-3-1-1 no set. Yeah, see, I don't know about that. Obviously, like I said, that 60% elemental damage is no joke. So, but not having no set, I don't know about that.
And that just makes sense. And each one of these lines represent a different setup. Some of these are 4-4-1-1-1, some of these are 4-3-3-1-1 with like no set bonus. There will be a legend at the top of the screen right now. And you can see that without any substat, assuming you're only caring about main stats, you're still better off running a 4-3-3-1-1 build. Always. Why? Let's look into the math. The first assumption people make is that your 4-4-1-1 will have way better substat than your 4-3-3-1-1 because it is easier.
Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. The 4 is always going to be the same. You would never not want to god tier roll that. And same thing with 2-1-1. The only thing you're going to be doing is replacing the 4 and the 1. And you could take that 4 and put it on somebody else's 4 right here. and take that 1 and put it on the other character, and then next thing you know, you got 2 less to worry about right off the bat if you farm it correctly the right way, because there's no end to it. You can just keep on doing it. It just depends on how we want to use it and how we look at it. We don't want to get fixed on this because we're only stuck looking this way. We were not utilized it the right way.
To the farm, and that's completely false. That is because your 44111 is transferable. This 4 here is equivalent to this 4. That means if you got a good 4 cost on your 44111 setup, you have a good 4 cost for your 43311 setup. These two pieces are the exact same. There's no difference. The same go with the 2 1 cost at the bottom. If your 1 cost have a god row for your 44111 build, so will your 1 cost row for the 43311, because they are the same, they're the share. So the only difference between these two sets are that you're running a 4-1 setup here versus a 3-3 setup here. And this...
It's just elemental damage. Because when you're having the 4-4-1-1-1 set, you're getting that elemental boost for attacking and doing heavy attack, but it's not going to be as high tier as if you had an extra 60% elemental damage on top of the set elemental that you're getting from those two over there, the 3-3. That's why I say that even when you're going inside the Tower of Adversity, you get an extra 30% on top of that. So that multiplier is so high that 4-3-3-1-1 for endgame is superior. But that's why they made it harder. That makes sense, right? This is done on purpose. You think the developers are making a mistake by this? Like I said, oh yeah, just keep farm the force as much as you want. Farm the one. Like they don't know we're gonna do that. You know what I mean? So yeah, we know this, but I think this is a good dummy chart for a lot of people to understand things, and it does appear to be smart. And it's not dumb; it is smart, but these are things that we do know.
This is a massive difference since this gives 60% damage. Comparing these 4 pieces together, you'll see that the difference is that the 4 costs provide you with either 22% crit rate or 44% crit damage, plus the 1 cost that provide you with 18% attack. On the other hand, the 2 free costs each provide you with 30% damage, or I guess you could go 30% attack if you really want to. And a smart man at this point would immediately recognize that there's no way this will ever compete. The 30% damage main stat is just significantly better than the 4-1 main stat, to the point where even if you have the god row, the best row, the perfect row on your 4-1 piece, it probably won't compete with your 3-3 piece. But why? That is because crit is extremely expensive and extremely inefficient, and it gives very, very little damage. Let's look at why. Assuming your character don't have any stat right now, equipping it with a 30% damage boost just boosts your damage by 30%. That kind of makes sense. So if you're doing 100 damage per hit, giving it a 30% damage boost will bring it to 130. But what about critical strike? If you're running a crit damage main stat 4 cost, then you get 44% crit damage. But how much damage do you really get from that? Because it is not a 44% damage increase, I'll tell you that. Suppose you get a 44.
See, I like what he's doing right here, because a lot of people can be deceived by that. You think because I got 40% crit damage, would that be the same as 40% elemental damage? Hell no, it's not. And he's actually right about that. So you could get stuck on those big numbers, which crit rate and crit damage do matter when stacked with elemental damage all together. That's kind of the point. But this is where I can say this part is actually good, and this is some important things to understand, because not a lot of people know this. The other stuff, you know, we know that. But this right here, this is some actually really good information, and I like it.
Or crit damage increase. What does that really mean? Well, in Wuthering Wave, there's a base 150% critical damage modifier, but let's keep it simple and let's keep it 1-to-1 for now. So with a 44% crit damage increase, that means your crit is now going to do 144% damage of the base damage. So instead of doing 100 damage, when you do crit, you do 144 damage. But here's the problem. You don't crit every single time. You might crit half the time if you have 50% crit rate. You might crit 1/3 of the time if you have 30% crit rate. It depends on the critical rate modifier as well. That means you have to average out your true damage increase. So let's say you have a 50% crit rate, and you crit half the time. So half the time you'll be doing 100 damage, half the time you'll be doing 144 damage. Your average damage is going to be 100 plus 144 divided by 2, which is 122. And you can see that this 122 is less than 130. So the 30% damage increase is just straight up better than your 44% critical damage increase.
That's true, because I get what he's saying. you're not always going to hit that. Whereas with the elemental damage, that's just elemental damage increase. 100% uptime. Because you're going to be doing the elemental damage of your character. That's why I said that you can't really compete with that. On top of not only that, but he's missing something here. The set pieces give you elemental damage increase. Excuse me a sec. So you're going to be getting that. You're not just getting 60%, but the element that you already have and the set bonuses that are coming from that. So that's 100% uptime damage, and you can get crit rate and crit damage on those as well. So that's out of the question. So yeah, but like I said, what about getting that for every single character if you're doing 2 teams with 6 characters? That's 12 elemental 3s that we need because it's 2 for each character. And are we going to get great rolls on all of them? So, and how easy is that to get? Not easy at all. It's a fucking pain in the ass. Like I said, because they put that crap in there where if I'm going on Rover, and it was cancer for me on Rover. I even did a 444 once, then I did, this other method after that. Because I've gotten everything in a game, but I could not get Have percentage for the life of me to drop, and it was pissing me off. I did 3 days of it, and when I did see it, it was in other sets where it didn't freaking belong. And that's what I mean by, like, what am I supposed to do with that if I'm trying to clear endgame right now? I got to get her to do something to do the right amount of damage. And guess what? I cleared the content and got some 3 stars and Tower Diversity, the 12 and the 12, by doing that. Because it was good enough to do that. I actually used her as a sub DPS with maining Lin Yang because Tempest obviously is resistant to my Calcharo, so since he's heavy on electro resistance, everything that I built into him, I had to rebuild up Lin Yang, and I had to do Rover, and I already had the subs where they were and stuff like that. But that's an example of I did the content. This comes down to, can I do the content with it? It may not be where I need everything to be 4-4-1-1-1, but I may have to put that on certain characters here and there, along with the ones that have 4-3-3-1-1-1, and we beat all the content. Are we going to do the 90s? No, but still, if you did most content and it works, I can't say that that's a scam. It worked. You know what I mean? A scam is like something, he scammed me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not working. Plenty of people can show you videos where it does work. But obviously the scam would be 4-4-1-1-1 is better than 4-3-3-1-1. No, it's not. 4-3-3-1-1 is a lot harder, way, way, way harder to get than 4-4-1-1-1. So I would say it would be better to get 4-4-1-1 to save yourself time as a free-to-play player and for the average pull, and see how far you can get while you're trying to build up those elemental sets. Because if you got that, obviously you wouldn't choose that. So it's not that it would ever be better, but it would be better to do that if you feel like you're low on options and that's all you got left. You know what I mean? So obviously you would never want to say that. So let's continue this.
But here's the worst part. This is assuming you already have crit rate. This is assuming you already have 50% crit damage, which if you go check your character right now, I don't even know if you have it. The reality is that crit is expensive to build. And what we mean by expensive is that in order to see an actual benefit from it, you have to get a lot of it. That is because critical rate doesn't function without critical damage, and critical damage doesn't function without critical rate. And even when it do function, in that previous example, I saw it with 50% critical rate, the damage increase is still not as good as the raw 30% damage increase from your elemental damage modifier. I mean, if you have a 100% critical rate, then yeah, your 44% crit damage increase is just a 44% damage increase, assuming you don't already have any critical damage modifier.
Yeah.
But do you have a 100% critical rate? Can you even get a 100% critical rate in this
You'd have
game?
to eat food
and as your
off the
critical
world.
rate start dropping from 100 to like less and less and less and less, your critical damage is less and less and less and less effective. The simpler way to think about it is that crit is extremely overpriced, and for the most part, you have to pay double to get the same amount of damage. And again, that's because you have to build both crit rate and crit damage. So if you were to build a 4 cost crit rate and then a 4 cost crit damage, and you add the damage up together, it is not even as good as 1 free cost damage increase. Now, that's not actually how it works. That's just a simple version. It depends on what other stat you have.
I get
Which is
what
the
you're
next
saying.
part we're going to talk about. Despite all of this, why do you still want to build crit at the end? You can think about the idea of trying to maximize your damage as if you're trying to build a box as big as possible, and the volume is your damage. So in this case, you're trying to build a box. There's three variables you can control.
He's making it ridiculous. Let's
significant from the crit.
I've seen this, but it's
damage increase from your other stat is not as significant. That's why you build crit at the very end, not the very beginning, because it is very expensive, but eventually it will be more expensive and less efficient to build.
Build crit at the very end? You just want it. Like, period.
Other stat compared to building crit. Again, build crit at the end, not at the beginning. Do not build 4-4-1-1-1. Stop building.
Okay, so he's talking about that. Well, I think when he's saying, like, when we get to where maybe if we get like 5, 6, 7-star echoes in the future and it's so good that crit damage can be scaled so high, you can get so much crit damage because your crit rate is so high. Maybe I could see that for later metas. I get that for like certain games. If that's what he's implying, I can understand that. But if you get crit rate and crit damage on 4-3-3-1-1, I can never see that being bad. But I don't think that's the case here. But I can understand that.
4-4-1-1-1. I know people are trying to do the 4-4-1-1-1 setup, especially on either Havoc or Thunder characters, because you can get the 5p set bonus. But it's all completely wrong. It has nothing to do with the set bonus. It has nothing to do with that it's easy to get crit because you can get both. It is simply inefficient in both of these cases compared to just doing a single free cost echo with the right main stats without either set bonus or without any substats. Unless you just don't have a single free cost echo of the corresponding element matching it, you should not be running 4-4-1-1-1. And keep in mind that, again, there is the...
But that's what this is about. Like, that's where I think where I felt like he should have adjusted better instead of saying that it's a massive scam and misinformation. People are not doing that because of that. No, it's exactly what he just said. If you don't have that 3% element. Like, you see what that right there is what I'm talking about? Electro damage and a sun sinking eclipse affects that. Do you know how common it is? This should not exist. All of y'all will agree with me. They should have not had that bullshit, and they should have had it to where me getting a Havoc is a Havoc character with a Havoc Sonata set and has Electro on it. That does not make any sense to me at all, logically. It should have been to where the percentage drop rate is harder to obtain. At least I know when I get it, I got it. I don't care if it took me a little bit long, but I know what I'm working towards. Not you scamming me, because that's a scam to me. Like, you want to talk about scam? That's a scam. That's a fucking casino tactic to hook people in and keep them in this hamster wheel and keep them rolling and then spending money. Nah, man. And like I said, I like these guys. And obviously this idea did not originate from them, but they took that from something and they put this in here, and I do not like it. So if you guys are watching this, please, if you can change that to what I just said, and if not, make the percentage drops higher then. Something, you know?
The Elusive Realm event that give you a free cost echo with a corresponding set on the corresponding element damage bonus. As always, this is a dumbed down version of the optimization problem in calculus that you'll find in high school, and you can go read a paper on it or a book on it
Come on, bro.
and learning more. But the general idea of the optimization problem is the same. In this video, you can see they're trying to build
I like this guy,
a
though. He's
two-dimensional
cool.
box, modifying their length and
He's
width
smart.
to be as big as possible. And you just have to think about this as the exact same thing, but now you have 3-dimension instead, and it's corresponded to a stat in the game. But just to summarize it from the beginning, a 4-3-3-1-1 setup where your free cost simply has the right main stats, even though it is on the wrong set, even though it doesn't have substat or has terrible substat, it's pretty much always going to be better than any 4-4-1-1-1 setup you can possibly come to build.
I wouldn't do that. But I understand what he's saying. Like, if you never plan on playing other characters, the only way I can see this being useful is if you have that ready for another character and you could throw, like, the wrong elements. But even then, it's just like you're wasting resources on something that you're going to have to replace anyways. I would rather do it correct on something that I know I can use in somebody else than giving somebody the wrong element with the wrong effect. We're not agreeing on this. You know? So I know what he's saying by mathematically, because that elemental damage, it could still be better with the right substats. But bro, I'm not trying to build all the wrong shit and waste resources on the wrong stuff. What I would say, that would be more of a scam than what he was saying is a scam. And I'm not saying he's scamming people, but I'm just saying I think there's a misunderstanding on that because I'm not going that route. No. But
The
I'm good though.
4-4-1-1
I'm
setup
geared. I'm decked
can
out.
have
4
the
3 3 1 1
5
on
set effect.
all my
The
shit.
4-4-1-1 setup can have the best substat in the game. For the most part, it is not as good as simply running a 4-3-3-1-1 setup, as long as these two free costs have the right damage main stat. And that's all it takes. That's how different the map is. That's how overpowered the map is. And so once you start putting into substat, 4-3-3-1-1 will win every single time. And if anyone asks why, that's because crit is expensive. You're paying $10 for 1 damage increase, where you could just be paying like $1 for 1 damage increase if you build damage stat instead.
I mean,
For
you're
critical,
right. We
not
know
only
that.
have to
You're
build
right, though.
both stats, so it's at least twice as expensive. You don't even see any gain for the most part unless you hit a crit, then your critical damage modifier come into effect. So the actual gain itself, even when you have both stats, is not as high. I try not to make this video as simple as it is to understand for people with a mathematic background, but it's definitely kind of hard, especially when you're not familiar with the optimization problem. You know, without understanding like why you should be increasing the size of each length of the box evenly, it is very hard to explain like why you should be putting a stat this way. So I just hope I explained it as best as possible. But yeah, it has nothing to do with your substat. It has nothing to do with it being easier to be onset. The 4-3-1-1 setup is simply better regardless of everything. And that's the two most common mistake that I see people are going around saying, oh, 4-1 is better because the substat is going to be better to roll.
Okay, so what's something I can't disagree with him. If they said it was better, no. Mathematically, it's not possible. So he'd be right about that. If he's doing this based off of that, I can understand that. But if that's what he said that they're scamming people on, then I take back everything I say if that's what he said. But it's not clear because when people come in here and read 411 is a massive scam, avoid this misinformation right now, I mean, that headline is off. It should be like, if people are telling you 44111 is better than 43311. Right? You see what I'm saying? Or 43311 or whatever. Then yeah, they are scamming you. I would say that would be a scam or misinformation. But it all depends on how we do this. Like I said, I don't believe any of these are scams on that scale. It's not a scam to do 44111 when you can't get the shit and you're locked out for the day. You're sitting over there hitting apply like you try to apply for a job, and then you got to be some beggar for somebody to let you in their game because like, you're not coming in here taking my stuff. I want this all for me. You know what I mean? You might go around and hit a spawn, and I don't know where the hell you hit it at. You took one of my spawns. You know, a lot of people are apathetic and selfish, so that could be the case. And the other thing is, this is something they should add in. They need to add in a ping system to where if somebody did that, it should show this echo is right here on the map by this, you know what I mean? And you could be able to go to it. Just, you know, there's only so much you could think of at once, but that would be a good thing for them to add in. But this is pretty much it on this.
Or it's easier to farm for onset. No, as long as your free cost has the right element damage on it. So I would appreciate if you guys can just like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly share the video to everyone who is kind of being misled by one of the most common mathematic error right there. And if I'm wrong, then I'm happy to be proven wrong, but someone would have to provide me with, you know, the same thing I did. Basically,
I wouldn't say that you're wrong.
Mathematic calculus.
It's just that him saying that 44111 is a scam and avoid misinformation. It depends on what he means by avoid this misinformation right now, because there's nothing wrong with doing that. But saying that it's better is wrong. You need to say it would be better to farm this, to have as like a sub-secondary till you can replace the 4 and the 1 with the 3 and the 3. You know what I mean? You got to do your wording correctly with people. Definitely when you're dealing with drama.
And there are certain cases where 44111 could be better, but it is extremely rare. It is extremely hard to achieve. 99.5% of the cases, 43311 should be better. So yeah.
But there y'all have it. Hopefully y'all enjoy this. Like, subscribe. I'll bring y'all more. This is a topic I've been wanting to cover for a while and glad to do it. All right, y'all. Peace out.